G'day viewers, going to do something a little different, although it's a thing I've done before. I'm going to reply to a very long series of comments a viewer left on one of my videos on my other channel. Now, this is all to do with me dealing with feminism versus the men's rights advocates. And I was toying with the idea of just throwing the floor open to, like, literally ask me any question, like, you know, no matter how much you hate what I say, and I'll give an honest answer. I was never going to go along with abuse, but I said that. And then I realised I blocked so many of these guys just because of the waves of abuse. It might not work. But then one of my viewers, a long-term viewer, who actually disagreed, well, he says it's my tactics he doesn't like, and he doesn't agree with a lot of things I say. And he posted quite a long series of messages. And I thought, well, there you go. Someone who disagrees with me, but who can calmly and rationally lay out what they think. See, that is a way you can have a dialogue. Now, in this video, I'm certainly not going to try and have any extended dialogues via comments, because that's not workable for people who can't work it out. If I get an enormous amount of comments who all demand individual attention repeatedly, that takes up far too much of my time and isn't worth it. I like replying to individual comments, but when people won't let it go, it ceases to be of any value to me, and in fact becomes actively negative and a waste of my time. So now, I don't speak for everyone who says they support feminism, obviously, and my viewer does not speak for everyone who disagrees with me. But yeah, this is an example of a dialogue, and I clarified with him how he felt he stood. Did he think he's anti-feminist? And he doesn't. He said he empathises with both elements of the men's rights activist movement and feminism. To which I said, well, that's going to get you enemies on both sides. To kick off, my personal thing is the fact that MRAs want some things that I also want does not mean, to me, my personal choice, that I identify with them in any way. A stopped clock is right twice a day, it's still useless. And the fact that, yeah, there is some crossover there. Stuff done in the mainstream MRA groups, mainstream MRA activists, is so reprehensible to me, it sickens me, and it is complete anathema to me. And that's why I reject that 100%. Obviously, people do things in the name of feminism that I don't agree with as well, but nothing that repulses me quite as much as the MRAs. So that's why, although there are doubtless some things they say they want that I also want, I don't identify with them at all. So, now, the fact that he said he identified with both will open up for him for abuse, so I actually don't want that for him. And he is a long-term viewer of my channel. He likes my channel. And so that's automatically going to make some people think that he's not sincere in opposing me. So I won't say the things where he says nice things about me, because that'll just antagonize people. So, yeah, so he's been a long-term viewer. And he does point out he does agree with me on some things. And yes, although I deliberately wind them up, I'm sure MRAs agree with me on a lot of things too, just not everything. You know, he says he sees problems with, you know, lad culture, and that too many MRAs and pickup artists do shrug off feminist whines, stuff that's a genuine thing. And as he said, if you disagree with me, it's fine, and this is correct. There is going to be disagreement here. So, now, he says his arguments are based on tactics and attempting to point out issues, not attacking me. And see, that's how you have a dialogue. You talk about the things rather than making it personal. So, he... And he even says, aside to anyone who views this, he recommends partaking in a respectful and factual basis void of personal attacks and harassment. It'd be in everyone's interest to have an open mind. See, I've just been subject to the abuse for so long that I don't even try anymore. But that's just me. So he talked about statistics, and I am actually a believer in the old saying of three sorts of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. He says that while some of the people have made videos going, oh, he's telling lies, from the research he's done, while there's obviously room for interpretation, he thinks my statistics are more accurate than the statistics thrown out by the people who who don't like me. So that was interesting. Now, talking about MRAs, he says in 2012 a friend of his killed himself, which was coincidentally around the time a friend of mine killed himself while a mutual friend was here in Australia visiting. And that pushed him to become an advocate for men's research of suicide prevention, and he's raised money for a thing called the Calm Zone, an anti-male suicide group in the UK. Thumbs up for that. He's written to his MP about child custody and domestic abuse sanctuaries in the UK, although he thinks his MP might have ignored that. He says he's demonstrated with feminists about the UK's tampon tax. Similar thing is in place in Australia. And he wants to raise money for breast cancer. He says he's been likened to the Klan and Hitler in my comment section, not by me, but just for being an MRA. And this is where we come back to. There are people who are in the mainstream of the MRA who inflame people like that. He does regard himself as a men's rights advocate and an activist, but he's not anti-feminist. I gave him that opening. I said, you just want to say, you don't have to say you're against women, you could just say you're anti-feminist. And he says, no, I am not anti-feminist. So there you go. So this is why he finds it problematic that I liken all rights advocates and pickup artists as woman haters. And that is a completely fair point. Obviously, not everyone who gets involved in these groups is an awful, terrible person. It's just the loudest voices in the mainstream, not the fringe, the mainstream of these groups do and say disgusting, despicable things. And hang me out to dry, I won't even hide from the fact when I get on a bit of a tear with these things, I don't go for subtlety. Guilty as charged on that. He points out, while there's some crossover between the groups, there are some pickup artists, PUAs, who regard themselves as completely outside the MRA movement and vice versa. Personally, I don't care. Again, if that makes me shallow, it makes me shallow. Don't actually care. And he does make a completely valid point. It's unreasonable to call all feminists man-hating bitches. It's unreasonable to call all Muslims terrorists. It's unreasonable for me to call all MRAs and PUAs complete fuckheads. Obviously, they're not all, and I'm absolutely guilty as charged on that. So, all right, he brings up a really calm video I did ages ago that I still got vitriolic abuse for, that men have problems. I'm a man. I've lived through man problems, ridiculous expectations placed on men, double standards men somehow try and conform to. It is absolutely real, and at some point I do want to get... AZ has very interesting insights on this, and I do want to get him to do at one point. He's just... Health is quite bad at the moment. And he points out that's why some people join men's rights activist groups. And not altogether tongue-in-cheek, I often say, yep, and the Nazi Party built hospitals and orphanages. Still not going to join the Nazi Party. So, and he points out that when I make an effort to recognise nuance in the feminist movement, and I don't so much with the MRAs and PUAs, and once again, copping to that, you are 100% right. We get into how, yes, something I already said, there are MRAs who would agree with me on a whole bunch of things, like the idea of boycotting Mad Max was absolutely ridiculous. There is over-sexualization of women in media. A lot of people who identified as MRAs agree with those things. He says he was an active feminist for a few years, learned about cotton sealing and other theories on intersectional perspectives. And some MRAs show another side in their arguments. So yeah, he says one interesting thread that stuck in his mind was intended to inform autistic males in the MRA movement who struggle to interact with women and couldn't interpret boundaries, how to respect women and inform them on how to be respectful and courteous to make women comfortable. And this sort of counteracts the really shitty behaviour of pickup artists who actually explicitly tell men to ignore boundaries and break boundaries. And you know, he's done things like promoting female comedians who get a hard time. So, and again, now he nominates, this obviously depends what MRAs you come across. He seems to have been lucky and hung out with a majority who weren't inherently misogynistic. Again, I'm going by the loudest mainstream voices, and they're fucking awful. So, yes, you are absolutely, he just repeats, I have lumped together a large group because I'm pissed off about what the loud mainstream voices in that group do. And I don't shy away from that, but I will also acknowledge I'm obviously saying things that don't, that aren't 100% true for everyone who identifies themselves as an MRA. Now he brings up anti-feminism. He wants to talk about definitions. He says that some people who identify as feminists say it's not possible for a man to be raped. Okay, not in my book. Those people are awful, and they are the fringe of feminism. This annoys me. I would challenge you to find someone who is regarded as a mainstream feminist who thinks that. There are people on the fringe who say awful things, but not in the mainstream. And I have no time for someone who would say that. There are a couple of odd things I don't know anything about, so I can't really comment on a concept that it's illegal for men to be standing up in Sweden. That just sounds odd. Yeah, now he's getting into 50-50 hiring, and that's really complex. And some people saying men should lose their job if more women need to be hired. I'd make that a video on its own. That's too complex. Some bad arguments people like Anita Sarkeesian made. Yeah, I definitely do not agree with everything Anita Sarkeesian said in her feminism tropes versus women in video games. I agree with a lot. I disagree 1,000,000% with the evil attacks on her. I think if you disagree, and I've seen some very solid, real disagreements with her. Yes. Okay, then he says the wage gap is false. That is a very complex issue. It's not black and white in my mind. There are a huge amount of variables, but the idea that women have equal footing in the workplace and pay rates simply isn't true. But again, the intricacies of that are so elaborate. I need a whole video to talk about that, and this is already shaping up as a long one. Yes, he says it's healthy to question these things, and people who push things and don't allow questions is where people end up anti-feminist. I would agree with that, actually, that if people can't have dialogue, then I won't. No, actually, no matter if somebody says they completely identify with me, if they can't have a dialogue on a given topic, I won't waste time on them. But I also don't waste time. The YouTube comment thread is not a viable method of communication because the dickheads who want to go me have no sense of boundaries or decency or the fact my time's more valuable than theirs. So I don't. He says men do face unique problems as a gender, which I agree. Yes, prison rape. This is complex because I've seen arguments that it's overstated. It's inexcusable. Obviously, I am bothered by people who bring that up essentially to negate the seriousness of the incidence of rape on women. This is not what's happening here, but I've seen people that's clearly their motivation. The important point is that rape is all done by men as well. It's not women raping male prisoners, just by the by. Men are the majority of murder victims, yes, and the overwhelming majority of the people committing those crimes are other men. Male suicide is an awful problem, like just a frightening number of suicides every day, every week by men. Again, very big, complex issue, would be worth exploring on its own. Yeah, there is something going on when men commit suicide at such high rates. Male education rates. There is a pendulum with education, And that's something that I think needs to be a constant discussion rather than pushing one way or the other. Males make up most of the homeless population. That is also true. And yeah, I think there are possibly some interesting societal things to explore there as well. Now, he is now quoting a thoroughly debunked figure on male domestic violence victims. Again, the overwhelming majority of men who are victims of domestic violence, the person committing the violence is also male. The incidence of females being a serial domestic abuser, it's real and it's awful and it shouldn't be belittled, and anyone who makes jokes about it is a jerk, but the incidence is microscopic compared to the incidence of domestic violence committed by men. There are some very rubbery statistics that have been deliberately, and he's using them there, saying they're 40% of abuse victims. It's simply not true. And yes, brings up the stigma. It's friggin' awful. It's not to say there's not a stigma for women being open about it either, but the idea that someone would joke about men being abused by women, that's bullshit. That is an awful thing to do. And he points out there is a story, again, I have no idea if this story is true, but the difficulties, he says a man was bullied into committing suicide by feminist activists when he tried to open a domestic abuse shelter for men. I've never heard that story. There's no source given for it, but I can imagine the difficulties if you did try and do this. The idea of International Men's Day, again, this idea that there's an equivalence between oppressed minorities and the dominant group, and we're talking about many, it's false equivalence is completely bogus. The idea, if this oppressed group has this group doing the oppressing should get something equivalent, I'm just not on board with. I think it's ridiculous. He points out, again, the Mad Max video where I just said MRAs. It was one specific site championing it called Return of Kings, who's a sad person behind that. And they're a pickup artist site, not MRAs. He's distanced himself from MRAs. I was deliberately winding people up and saying, don't give a shit that you think you're different. From the outside, you're all the same pathetic mob. And I was deliberately winding people up. Yes. Footnote, since then, that same site, Return of Kings, came up with this absurd thing that, because Star Wars with its anti-white, anti-male thing, because it had a black star and a female star, we boycotted it, and that cost them millions. We completely bogus made that number, but even if it was true, like, we cost them 4 million, and, it's rocketing past 1.5 billion as I speak. That's not even a statistical rounding error. That guy's so pathetic. Okay, I will try really hard to never associate that site with the broader MRA movement, because that guy is just sad. Okay, Gamergate. I'm not going to debate Gamergate. Gamergate started with a psychotic ex-boyfriend starting a harassment campaign against an ex-girlfriend. That is the truth. I have zero time for anyone who wants to actively say they support Gamergate. I don't care. That is a group that was started solely to harass one woman, broadened to harass more, and then this cover story about ethics in games journalism came out. It's a lie. That's how it started. That's the facts. Honestly, Gamergate is nothing but contempt. It absolutely sickens me. Absolutely sickens me. It's disgusting. It's awful. There are 3 types of people involved in Gamergate. The ones who really started it, the evil, twisted bastards. They're just sickening, vile people. The people who've been sucked in by them, who don't realise what these sick bastards do, and the ones who possibly make me sick, that there is some benefit to them. They're not misogynist, they're not evil, but they see some benefit to themselves, if not outright aligning themselves with Gamergate. It's in their interest to not condemn it. That's disgusting and cowardly and awful, and I have no time for it. So yeah, Gamergate, I've got no time for whatsoever. No time whatsoever. It's absolutely fucking disgusting. And now he said I'm factually incorrect about the origins of the movement. No, you're wrong. This is it. This is not even opinion. There'll be a link. And when people say provide the proof, and I've provided the proof, and they go, oh, that article's a hit piece. It's like, this is why I don't waste time debating these things, because they are not interested in hearing something that contradicts, something true that contradicts beyond any doubt what they're saying, okay? I am right about the origins of Gamergate. Everyone else is either lying or has been lied to and has believed the lie. And I have zero interest, absolutely zero, in taking that further. The whole Gamergate thing utterly disgusts me. It's reprehensible. And let's go. Okay, you think the shtick of being angry is what's done the most damage. From your point of view, it's done damage with people who disagree with me. See, those people who disagree with me, I don't give a shit about. I just don't. As I said repeatedly, that's not who I'm making it for. Oh, and the suggestion that if I did karma videos, I wouldn't get abused, that isn't true, because I've done the karma ones and I got just as much abuse, okay? So I do what I want when I want. So I have zero interest in the idea of I shouldn't do the angry thing, because that's just not real. So I need to take into account the nuance of these online movements. I honestly don't. I honestly don't. I know you'd like me to see your side. What I see is the disgusting evil done by these groups, okay? And I want some people to wake up to themselves. But this is the thing. This is opinion we're talking about now, okay? And people will always be different on that front. So yeah, so you say someone just drops in and leaves a misogynistic comment with no input, then it's understandable that I delete it. Yeah, oh, good. I'm glad you understand that. Of course you do. Now, okay, and look, this is a perfectly valid observation you make. Is that when I use my facts and I present a one-sided argument, which I quite often do, and crush unreasonable opposition, unwarranted moderation, that's opinion that I disagree with, and my angry vitriolic persona is bad tactics. See, this is, and I've been doing this for a long time, as you well know, this is where I think you're wrong. The idea that I could present this another way and these people wouldn't behave like that, that simply isn't true. I know that from experience. So I do something that is fun for me and fun for people who want a bit of catharsis. And yes, subtlety gets lost in that. That's just something I'd like to do. Now, he brings up some context to what other people are doing. Yeah, see, he's bringing up some of the people who've made videos attacking me, and he's thinking that's better. The reason you think that's better is you agree with what they're saying. See, people who agree with what I'm saying think the angry thing is good, funny, entertaining. When it's directed at you and you disagree with what I'm saying, it seems bad. See, but if someone agrees with me, they think it's good. You're saying, oh, because this guy presents a reasonable argument, and I've never wasted my time watching these videos, so I can't answer this. You agree with them. That's why you think it's better. It's as simple as that. Now, his summary is, don't use the word misogynist, rape apologist, MRAs, way to shut down the argument. Honestly, again, this doesn't lend itself to subtlety. When I do the ones where I do the full-on angry performance, and it is performance, for those who don't realise, I'm always saying things I believe. I never say things I don't believe. The angry stuff is performance. And a lot of the people are too stupid to understand the difference between performance and reality, and the fact that performance doesn't mean not true. But that's how it is. Stop lumping groups arbitrarily, generalising. I'm honestly, look, you lay that out there, and there's no value in that for me. Like those same people that you called reasonable, lump whole groups together, but you just think they do it reasonably. You agree with stuff. So what you call lumping people together, I call laying down some truth bombs. And again, you bring up Gamergate. No, okay? No. Disgusting, vile, contemptible filth pit, okay? Not even going to pretend that there's anything else to say on that. See, and there's this, you've laid out, and this is why I responded, because you've laid this out really well, really rationally, and as I said at the time, I really applauded you for putting that effort in. But I feel like you're falling into the trap of thinking that other people are as reasonable as you. They aren't. It's as simple as that. I've had that again and again and again and again. And so, as I said, you raised points. You're quite accurate in a lot of the points about the things I say and the way I say them. And that's a conscious choice. I didn't do that accidentally. I made a conscious choice to present like that, and I'm going to continue to do that. Because, unfortunately, this whole idea of a well-thought-out, well-structured argument will put you on top. No, it won't. The people I'm targeting are unreasonable frickin' trolls, and I'm going to continue to treat them the same way. Yeah, and look, if you distinguish between different groups, acknowledge nuances. It would be miles above people like your detractors who label feminists as a whole. So, look, you laid out a really good argument. I agree with the overwhelming majority of it. It's just that, like I said, some of that stuff just doesn't work in the real world. People aren't that reasonable. And you've either missed or glossed over, I'm deliberately baiting these people. When I go in hard, I'm doing that for a reason. And from my point of view, what I'm doing is going in hard on people who simply aren't used to someone going in hard on them. And it's not for them. I don't care about them. It's as simple as that. I don't care. There are 1,000 other things in the world I care about first. So I don't particularly want to treat these people with nuance. I have very little interest in that. There are other things that are more important for me. So do the videos. A bit of catharsis for me and a bit of catharsis for other people who've been on the receiving end of this sort of bullshit and want a bit of a release, and they don't have to do it themselves because I do it for them. That was a line I used very early on doing stuff on YouTube. I get angry so you don't have to. And that is something I'm going to continue to do. And it alienates some people. It makes some people happy. But it's what I want to do. And that's always going to be what drives what I do. So I hope that you think I've treated you fair. I've never used a name in here because I actually don't want him to get attacked. He's probably going to pop up in comments and go, "It was me." And that's well and good. One of the things I really don't countenance is people attacking my friends. I don't really give a shit at people who attack me, but attacking my friends, if I invite someone in on a video, attacking them is not acceptable in any way, shape or form. So, I hope if you've watched the entire epic length of this, then this is now out to everyone, of course, is watching. I hope you found it worth your while. Maybe it got you thinking about things. Maybe it made my motivations a bit clearer. I actually made a point of not reading his whole comment in detail before making the video because I wanted a spontaneous reaction. It's not necessarily the right thing to do, but I'm happy I did it that way in retrospect. So yeah, that's me putting up the calm presentation of why I say what I say and what motivates me. You probably look forward to me shouting again sometime very soon. Hope you're around for that. Bye.